everybody, I'm Liz, and it has been a hot minute. I have had a lot of things going on these past 3 weeks, so I am trying to get started as I talk about the multitude of books I have finished reading in September, and then talking about some books I am currently reading for the month of October, which happens to be my favorite month of the year because I am obsessed with Halloween. So, without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so the first book I finished was Scarlet by Marissa Meyer, and I did not like it nearly as much as I liked Cinder. So this is a Red Riding Hood retelling that takes place in points of view of both Cinder and then Scarlet in Paris. I couldn't really connect with her nearly as much, and her love interest in the story, it was very much insta-love, like they knew each other for a day and they were already kissing, and I don't really like that, especially if it's creepy. And in this book it's creepy because he literally says, "She is mine," and I can't stand the possessiveness of that aspect of the story, and it feels like this book not a lot happens in it. I did like it enough because I was very curious still with Cinder's story to continue on, which we will talk about Cress next, because I did finish it also in September. But for this book itself, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. So Cress was the last book I actually managed to finish in September, and I actually really enjoyed this one, guys. I loved meeting Cress and diving into her backstory and kind of how she just interacted with Scarlet and Cinder and Thorn and everybody on the ship and their journey. I loved it so much. This is a Rapunzel retelling. I love the story, the continuation. It really added a lot more depth and entertainment and things with the plot contained with Cinder and everybody else in the story. There was a few things in here that was a little bit wrapped up too nicely, or the connections were just a little too convenient, which is a popular criticism I found out as I was kind of looking at reviews on Goodreads, and I do agree with it, but I still enjoyed it. I didn't really see it as much of a disservice. I thought that it added a lot of really interesting content to the plot, so I really did love Cress. I give Cress a 4.5 out of 5. Alright guys, so next, after Scarlet, I finished Obsidio by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. It is the completion, the third and final book in the Illuminate Files series, and it was such a complete, successful, good conclusion to this tear-jerking, stomach sinking series, and it follows Asha Grant, Katie Grant's cousin, and Reese, who is a bi-tech soldier who's really good with electronics and fixing equipment, and they meet on Carenza as the story goes on, as they continue to tell the story of the nasty bi-tech corporation and how it killed so many people on Carenza 4, and how this group and gang get together with all of their files to take down bi-tech. And oh my gosh, I was so torn up during reading the book. I Instagram storied some of my reactions to things and how I just couldn't handle the suspense. It was so intense, and I love this book series so much, and this conclusion was so great, and just intense, and that's all I can really say about this book. I love this story so much so that the conclusion is definitely getting a 5 out of 5. Next up, I wanted to read a happier story, something that wasn't intense, something that was more fluffy, and that was when I picked up Let's Talk About Love by Claire Kahn. This is a fluffy contemporary romance with the lead main character, Alice, who is asexual, bi-romantic, and she just breaks up with her girlfriend due to an issue in the relationship, particularly that Alice cannot talk about her asexuality, and she's trying to kind of get over these post-breakup feelings, and then she meets a boy named Tamuki who happens to get a job at the library she works at. They really talk about things. She goes through a lot. It was such a lighthearted, great, quick read, and it definitely helped me avoid a reading slump after reading such intense books like Obsidio. So I was really welcome. I was really happy about that. I was not a huge fan of the writing structure and kind of like how things were written with dialogues and texting as much as I wanted to like it, but I did still really enjoy and really love the story. It was really cute, so I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read 5 editions of Saga, and in about 2 nights. I couldn't put them down after I started. So I read volume 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and I still really, really love this story so freaking much, and how everything happens, changes. So I really love Marco and Alana's story with their child. It is getting so good. The only thing is some of the other character arcs I am not a huge fan of, particularly the Will and Gwendolyn. I feel like each volume, each edition changes my feelings with each character so much that I just want to keep reading and seeing where they go to next. I will say I'm very upset with one plot spoiler in the book, and y'all know my favorite character, y'all know what happens to my favorite character if you've read on through volume 8. If you understand, we can talk about it in the comments below. I won't bring it up. Just say I'm not very happy with it. I'm pissed off, but we're moving on. Anyway, I still really love the series, and I'm really excited to pick it up more. Collectively, I'm giving all of these 4.5 out of 5. After reading Saga and getting really invested and involved in comics, I picked up The Wicked and the Divine, The Imperial Phase Part 1 and 2, and we'll just say I was not expecting what happened in this story. I'm just really along for the art and the ride of what's going on with the rest of the gods in this, because they have a year left. They're really worried about what's happening post-Inake and just what happened in the first 4 editions. I was very intrigued with some things, but again, I was not expecting basically any huge plot reveals in this story, and so I'm going to continue on with it. I can give these a solid 4 out of 5. Alright, so those are the 4 novels and the 7 comics that I read during September, which means I had a fan-freaking-tastic reading month in September. So I'm going to keep the ball rolling by reading me some spooky stories and get right on to what I am currently reading in October. So obviously, I haven't finished Night Film by Marish Pessel yet. I will plan on it. I have been really diving into the story and reading actually quite a lot of this story in the past couple days, I really wanted to finish it, especially because I had a 10-hour car ride from my city to Colorado for my anniversary, but I was so exhausted because I didn't sleep at all the night before as I welcomed my nephew into the world. So instead of reading, I slept on that 10-hour car trip. So I haven't finished this yet, but I plan to finish this book really soon, like in the next few days soon. Next, I am currently listening to the audiobook of The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This book centers around two magicians. We have Cecilia and Marco, and they were both been basically entered unwillingly into this competition by their teachers. And so as they grow older, they learn how to perfect their craft, and then they both enter into the night circus. They create it, and they help with all of these other fantastical circus folk and the proprietors behind it to create this fantastic, wonderful, spectacular night circus. And in doing so, they're also competing with each other, making better, more interesting, cool looking displays. And I really am enjoying the turn of the story and the progression of the story and how everything kind of fits together. Another book I am currently reading is The City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. This is about a girl named Cass who can see ghosts due to a near-death experience, and her family, her parents are basically they're ghost hunters. They go to places and seek out the truth of the hauntings, talk about the history of the location, and then the potential for there to actually be spiritual activity there. And her parents land a TV show gig, and they go to Edinburgh, Scotland to investigate all of these haunted places. And so I'm about 65 pages in, and I am so stoked for this story already, especially because it talks about ghosts and haunted things, and it's October. Another book that I am currently reading, but have kind of stopped reading it, is Zenith by Sasha Ellsberg and Lindsay Cummings. I read just a little bit of this book. I got to about chapter 13 through the audiobook. The audiobook was great. It was really immersive with all the different voice actors, with all the different points of view of the story. I did put it on the kind of back burner for a little bit because I didn't feel like I was really connecting with Andy, our main character, and I felt like the side plot with one of the planets was a little kind of something I need to dive into more later because I need to put a lot of attention into when I read it. So there we have some books I am currently reading, and I'm excited to see what other books I end up reading in October. If you have read any of the books I've talked about in this video or comics, please let me know in the comments down below. I would love to talk to you about them, what you feel, what you liked or didn't like, and all of that jazz. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you stick around by subscribing, liking, all of that stuff, and I love you guys. Bye!